What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, June 28th of 2023? Before we get into all the fun stuff, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go look us up on the socials at the Alex Cuesta Show. And, you know, it's unfortunate that I have not done a better job myself in finding a replacement for you, David. Hi.
Hi. Hello. I know I've been bringing up a certain thing that was going to happen for a while, and I know I said it was going to happen this week, so I want to get that out of the way. I bought my first house. I am now a homeowner, so that was the big thing. I'm moving soon, which I'm dreading a little bit because that's just annoying, but yes, that is the big thing I've been bringing up week after week.
You know, it's a pretty big step. Now, Dave, you're not an old man like me, so it's actually a pretty big step. How old are you now? What are you, 26?
Yeah, I'm going to turn 27.
26, 27, full house, first time. Mm-hmm. And so I'm proud of you. You know, you're my brother. That's freaking awesome. I am super proud of you. And, you know, just good luck with everything. Enjoy being a homeowner now. And
I'll try
all
to.
The shit that goes with it. Because
I'll try to. I'm going to try not to start conflict like you, because, I mean, you started some last week with our guests, but that was at the end of it. And now you're starting one this week in the begining before we even start.
The conflict is good, and I think I might have actually won this one. But before we get into this week's show, I want to talk about last week's show. We kept it local for the third week in a row. We had somebody from Manchester on. We had Mayor Rob Arachi of Manchester and also council president for Manchester and one of my childhood friends, Roxy Conniff. We had a great show. Talking everything local, talking about our hometown, and talking a lot of local politics stuff. So it was a really good show. Please go back, give that a listen. But this week, Dave, it's fair to say that we actually have a bucket list guest on.
Yes.
We started the show. You know, we obviously have people that we were aiming to get on. This is somebody that I want to say now at least 6-7 years since I've come back to listening to Glenn Beck's The Blaze and things like that. I heard the guy that he's the executive producer for filling in for Glenn one day, and I'm like, this guy's awesome. Let me check out his show. And then this guest was on there as well talking. He is Keith Malinak. He's the executive producer for Pat Gray Unleashed, and he's on the show that precedes the Glenn Beck program daily on the Blaze TV and radio networks. Keith, what's going on?
Hey guys, thanks so much for making time. I appreciate it. This is
we appreciate you making time, man. I know we record a little bit late here on the East Coast.
Yeah,
you're up extremely early because Pat Gray is on. What time does it go on? 8 o'clock over there?
6 o'clock Central.
7
so
o'clock?
I get up at 3 a.m. every morning, and it's a blast to do it that way. I want to start off by giving you kudos. We talked before you hit the record button. Somehow the conversation got to Jeff George, former Atlanta Falcons quarterback, and I said, "There's no way. I don't remember him in a red Falcons uniform." And sure enough, you've produced the image. Why I have completely blanked that out of my mind, and that doesn't. The reason that doesn't make sense, and I've seen the picture, I've done my own Googling here, I found the pictures. I'm just trying to figure out when that would have been, because he was traded to the Falcons. We're not going to make this the Atlanta Falcons podcast.
That's fine.
But it doesn't make sense. If they went from red to black in 1991, I believe it was, or maybe it was 1990, somewhere in there. Can't think here off the top of my head. But the trade from the Colts to the Falcons was 1994. So I don't know when they did throwback jerseys, but anyway, I want to point out real quick here as we wrap up the brief Falcons aside. I was looking up, and it's always fun to look up really crappy Falcons trades because they've done so many of them. But basically that trade was Trev Alberts and Marvin Harrison, because they used the draft pick. Trev Alberts now the athletic director for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, former Husker legend. So anyway, it's just so great to see that that the Atlanta Falcons, boy, they're not smart in the front office, because the same team that got rid of Brett Favre. Anyway,
You know,
Continue.
it's always great that we could start off a podcast torturing Keith, because if you listen to Pat Gray Unleashed, it's honestly just like a Keith torture session for most of it, because it's such a fun show. Again, like I said, I've been listening for a long time. Now I have to say, I really feel like you and Pat have to be the highest paid people at the place. There is no way that you are going to be forced to sit there with Jeffy every single week and not have something in the clause to be the highest paid there.
It's interesting that you say that. It's not compensation and pay. What it is we both have an agreement in our contract, Pat and I, that we only have to tolerate Jeffy 2 times a week. So he's only in there on Wednesdays and Fridays. Any more than that, and then we're upstairs with the executives asking for pay raises. Yeah, that's how that works.
I mean, I was surprised when they let Jeffy inside of Gwen's studio when he was when both him and Stu took their vacation, and Jeffy was allowed to be in there with Pat. So it's again, once again, so go listen to the show. It's good fun. You hear a lot of great political talk, which is something we're going to do here today. It's not only going to be a football talk. It's not going to be Falcons. Me and Dave can go on a rant. We could talk NFL as well. We do it every once in a while.
We're Jets fans. We can talk misery for as long as possible.
Yes, we're good.
It's funny, though. I will just say this. Every year I put money on the Falcons, even though I know that they will never win the Super Bowl, but I do it anyway. And I also put money on a long shot team that I think still has a chance. They're a good team, right? And so 2 years ago, the closest I've ever gotten to cashing that bet was I picked the Bengals.
Yeah.
And, they came close to winning the Super Bowl. That would have been a huge payoff, man. And last year, my team was the Jets. So my point is, you guys are very close.
Very close.
And
very close.
This year, if I think Aaron Rodgers still have something left in the tank, and so you should at least make the playoffs. All right, let's put it that way.
That's what we've been saying. But you never know.
The seasoned Jets fan of me says everything that can go wrong will go wrong, so we shall see. But let's jump in here. We're going to talk about politics again. We could talk football all day, but we're going to get in here because one of the things we want to talk about is, should we right now trust anything that we see in Washington, Keith, going on? Just anything that comes out of there, Congress, especially this president. We see that President Joe Biden and, his perfectly squeaky clean, smartest guy always in the room, son, Hunter Biden, are kind of in a little bit of a scandal right now. But maybe you might not know, if you're listening out there, if you watch anything else or listen to anything else besides conservative talk radio, because no one's really talking about it much. What do we believe, Keith?
Well, to answer your first question, do we believe anything coming out of Washington? If you don't mind, I'd like to read the 5 things that I teach my kids, regardless of who is in the seat of power in Washington, D.C. Number 1, never trust the government. Question it. I think that applies definitely today.
Yep.
Number 2, never assume the government has noble reasons for doing something. Number 3, figure out how much things really cost. Number 4, follow the money every time. Number 5, learn the Constitution and know where your rights come from. Now, as it applies to this administration, my gosh, even on Washington, D.C.'s best day, I don't trust what's coming out of Washington. And today, it is... just when you think it can't get any more absurd up there with the lies and what they want us to believe, they go and they set a new bar for ridiculousness, the stuff that they expect us to believe. And when they do this, whether it's Joe Biden or KJP or anybody in the administration, quite frankly, I just wonder how many people out there are listening and believing this. And then I stop and go, wait, they're not even listening. Then nobody's tuning this in. It's like you're tuning it. I'm tuning it in. Yeah. Some political junkies, we're tuning it in. But for the most part, people aren't even watching, so they don't even know to care. And so I think that's very disheartening. And I would say that to answer your question, no, we shouldn't. What was the question? We shouldn't trust anything
out of Washington yet.
No, not at all. Question it. Absolutely.
Question everything. And on your show, you guys play a lot of clips and things like that because you're on TV as well. I'm almost thankful that we don't do clips because I get enough insanity when I listen, because I listen to a lot of, I try to ingest as much talk radio podcasts as I can, between you guys, Glenn show, I'll listen to Tim Pool, I'll listen to Lotus Eaters. Those are kind of like the big 4 that I listen to then I'll trickle in. David likes to make me listen to Nerdrotic and stuff on YouTube, and a lot of those guys there. But it's like, you guys play a lot of clips, and it drives me nuts listening to the clips. I can't imagine going in there pre-show, going into pre-production, and trying to pick which insane clips you're gonna play today. Like, what is that process like going in there and just, are you sick to your stomach by the time you guys are already starting to do the show?
What's the process like? Unfortunately, the process never ends. It's a complete circular ordeal. I constantly am consuming this poison, and it's not healthy, I know. And one day, you'll see me on the news. No, it's
well, at one point you might be even desensitized to some of it. Like some of it's like, God, it's just normal, and
truly, I mean, that's accurate. That is very true. I will say that every day it tests my limits personally, to not just drop F-bombs on the Blaze TV and radio networks.
You can do it.
So when I'm asking Lance...
You are more than welcome to do it here.
Yeah, thank you. Cathartic, right?
Yes.
When I lean over and I look at Lance and I'm like, hey, what's the delay today? I mean, that's a joke, but not really, because I have no tolerance for this stuff. It's this administration, I wish it were just an embarrassment.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. It's a dangerous nation that we are leaving for our kids. And it's an unhealthy nation that every day, just when you think, and I'm not just confining this critique to Washington, D.C. and to politicians, but the people as well. The viral videos out there, whether it's an out of control pride parade in front of kids, whether it's burning down cities just because we can. There's so many examples where this nation is rotting from the inside out.
Yes.
That you don't even have to look to Washington, D.C. to be appalled. And, it's disheartening. In fact, I was just, while you were talking there, I was just looking up this tweet that I recently sent out. And I hate to be such a downer, but I mean, you want you want a real person, right, to have a conversation with.
Oh, I like it. It is nice because you share the time with Pat a lot, so we get to hear, and you bring a good amount. You guys together bring a lot of comic relief. Like, you guys try to make light of really shitty situations. So it's nice every once in a while to give you a chance to kind of let your hair out, so to say, and just use this as a venting time.
Yeah. No, there was a famous philosopher. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him. His name was James Buffett, and
yes.
Yeah, and he said, if we couldn't laugh, we would all go insane, and that's absolutely right. But I mean, I if I tweet it on my Twitter account at Keith Malinak, or if I say it on Pat Gray Unleashed or The Overtime Show or my podcast, if I say it, I believe it. There's nothing that I'm saying for shock value. I'm 100% real. And so when I tweet out something as depressing as this, I mean it. This is just a few days ago. I tweeted out, it just occurred to me, in U.S. history, we faced many generation-defining issues. In elections, candidates must address these issues with constitution-minded seriousness and maturity. The COVID vax is such an issue. I need a leader who understands the long-term consequences of its catastrophic failure. So I get private messages from people that support one candidate or another, and I won't get into that right now. But I get so much heat, and I'm so sick of it. But I'm just being honest with you, and if you're going to take offense to that, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, wait, he's talking about my candidate, then and then you need to examine your candidate then. If methinks you doth protest too much. Anyhow, but so I'll let people interpret that how they want to. But I wanted to look for one more tweet here to make this point. Hang on
And and while you're looking at that,
go
the
for it,
thing that
please.
is the worst part about the current climate, and I like your tweets. You tweet a lot of just like fun stuff. You tweet your dog all the time. You'll tweet pictures. Like you try to be a human on Twitter, which is rare for someone that's knee deep in politics like you are.
Yeah.
But it's like when you do put your opinion out there, that's the worst part that I see right now going on the right. Is it's primary season. It is okay to kind of, battle it out. That's what it's for. Let the best candidate win. But just all the vitriol. Dave, what do you got?
I will say this. I think there is a difference between someone like Keith, who has been in radio for a bit and actually is more of like old school radio, than some of the other commenters that we see that popped up now that don't follow that same vibe. They're, I'm not going to go and say not like there's certain people aren't 100% real or like that, because I don't know. I can't certify that. But they're there for content. Where old school radio, yeah, they make content, but they're not people that just put out shorts. They're not people that just do that. They have real lives, and they rather stay away from the radio stuff as much as possible because that shit's just draining. While the other people are just trying to make money off that content. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Keith, he just called you older. You're going to take that?
I said old school. I said old school. It's a mindset.
You've been in radio for a little bit.
It's totally accurate. Yeah, my first day in radio was July 2nd, 1992. So
David was not born.
I think that makes me old. I'm looking for. I'm kind of pissed here now because I wanted to read that quick tweet there, but I really wanted to find another tweet that was the depressing one. Anyway, and the point I was making recently was that if we're not as a nation going to take the tyranny of the last 3 years, if that's not enough to cause upheaval in this country, if we aren't going to push back on that, if we were tested on that, and as a collective we failed that test, then I'm sorry, I can't see us. I mean, we get more upset as a nation if our favorite show gets interrupted for a breaking news. There's a tornado in your backyard. Well, dear God, you interrupted my football game for this. Yeah. And granted, I mean, we're among football fans here, so we understand.
I would be pissed.
Right. I'd be pissed too. Okay. But the fact that we get so pissed about that, but yet the same people who, generally speaking, I'm not talking about us, but the same people who will get pissed off about that, they won't even stop for a minute and realize that their livelihoods were threatened because they refused to roll up their sleeve for a COVID shot. But granted, they might have willingly done that, So it's a completely different group. But I think you see my point. We're a society that will bitch and complain about ATM fees. But we won't demand the government not require that we take an experimental vaccine that isn't proven. That anyway,
or that we stop sending money to Ukraine. That we stop sending money and our weapons to Ukraine. Like, we're not sitting here and I made my stance known on this show about Ukraine. Do I want Ukraine to win the war solely off the fact that it's one sovereign nation being invaded by another? That is it. We have, as a Western power, we have pushed Russia to the brink. I understand Russia and their sphere of influence argument. Putin is an asshole. Putin is not a good actor. But, with this Ukraine thing, I don't want to send all of our weapons there. I don't want to send a ton of money there. I don't want Ukrainians' future to end either, because they're having all of their young men be killed. What is Ukraine's future after this? So it's like, I'm with you. We need to start pushing back in a better way.
But I think it also harkens back to, with the Yuri Bezmenov video where he's explaining like demoralization and stuff like that. Like it's a demoralized populace. There's apathy. A lot of people just rather not care about what's going on. They might complain a little bit about certain things, but they just don't put in the effort to actually try to care. And I mean, that's why we could point out clip after clip after clip of Justice Administration from like a week of stuff that they lied about and just nonsensically lying about things where it's like you don't even need to, or just bragging about their inflation numbers now being lower than their inflation numbers that they had earlier in the presidency. Like, then certain things that you would never bring up in a presidency that would piss off people probably in the last I'm going to say 20 years, because I'm going to say we've been demoralized for a while. But still, it seems like it's been a big thing that's happened to just the populace in general, where they just don't want to necessarily push back because they don't feel like they should or need to or something.
No, and I think that's a great point, David. And I think that January 6th is being used and has been used and was planned to be used from the very moment it was conceived by Nancy Pelosi and others, that is to serve as an example. Oh, really? You want to march on D.C.? Mm-hmm. Oh, you want to come into the Capitol? Oh, you want to complain about fill in the blank? Mm-hmm. Then we will make an example of these people, and you will think twice before you even show up within the city limits when there's something going on up here that you disagree with. But to your point on the Biden economy, or I cannot believe that they are actually calling it Bidenomics, and they're actually embracing that. I mean, it'd be one thing if the economy were this goes back to the lies, Mm-hmm. It'd be one thing if the economy were great and they were like, yep, how do you like this Bidenomics? Mm-hmm. But I mean, he gets up there, he gives this speech yesterday, and he's lying about reducing the deficit. Mm-hmm. He's lying about the rate of inflation. What a joke. I cannot believe that. Yeah, I guess I can. That the people in this nation are so dumb that they probably, many of them, again, not your audience, not mm-hmm. the Blaze audience, but so many people that we pass in the grocery store that are going to hear that and go, yeah, you know what? The rate of inflation has gone down. Yeah, hey, it's gone down from where this asshat has raised it. He's bragging about how it's come down in the last year. Well, who the hell was president last year, moron? He's lying about job creation. My gosh, when you force people out of work because of a pandemic, then mm-hmm. yes.
Of course, you're going to attack in droves. Yes.
It's and at the same time that they want us to believe these lies that they're telling us, they're trying to spin this alternate reality about the economy. At the same time, they're telling us that the greatest existential threat that this nation is facing is global warming. Shut up. And white supremacy.
At this point, I don't think it's white supremacy. It's white people. Like they say white supremacy. What they really mean is just white people, especially if you've listened to any or read any Ibram X. Kendi, read any Robin DiAngelo. I've subjected myself.
You're brave enough to read that. Yeah.
I've subjected myself to both. It's quite literally, it's not just white supremacy. It's white people are the problem, because if you're born white, you're inherently racist. That is quite literally the, viewpoint of critical race theory, which, is a critical theory that people don't pay attention. But it's like, I don't know, Keith, you guys, I give you guys credit, because doing it daily, 5 days a week, like David and I do this once a week. I was doing almost like a daily thing where I would read articles and stuff. It drove me nuts. Like, it's fun, right? It's fun and depressing. So I want to jump into primary season, because I think we've beaten a dead Biden enough there. But I want to jump into primary season here. Right now, serious candidates on the right are obviously Doug Burnham and Will Hurt. Between those two, are you feeling the Bergamentum? Like, where are you?
Oh, I am. That Suarez mentum is.
But I hate all of them. But so can we sit there? Can you push for a rule? I want you to start lobbying with Pat. No one should be allowed to put presidential candidate next to their name after the election unless they ever got to 20% in the polls. Because I hate seeing people that's like, I don't know, like maybe like Rick Santorum was kind of real, but
not even like 1% for some of these characters.
No, honestly, part of my friends, fuck all of them. Joe Wall puts presidential candidate everywhere. The guy's not a Republican. He's just a giant douchebag. He was never a presidential candidate. Nobody cared about Joe Walsh. They don't know he's a political commentator. They think of the guy from Rock. It's like, so there needs to be like a push. Like, people should stop being allowed to put presidential candidate next to them unless they have a legitimate percentage.
No, that's breaking news to me. I honestly didn't realize that he was running for president. Joe Walsh?
He was.
Oh, he was.
He ran in 2016. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant this cycle as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
I'm sorry. Because there are like...
Well, I was going to say he might be. We just don't know.
Yeah, there's like 150 people. And I thought, oh my gosh, I missed that. Okay.
I'll check his Twitter. No, he was, but he puts presidential candidate next to his name. And it's like, dude, nobody cared about you.
I gotcha. Yeah. No, that's funny. My gosh. Let me tell you what my first priority is with 2024. And a lot of people are probably going to roll their eyes when I say this, but just bear with me, stick with me to the end. My first priority in 2024 is that Robert Kennedy Jr. wins the Democrat nomination, because by March, how much better would it feel to be able to exhale that there's a light at the end of the Biden tunnel than have to wait and hope for November? Because a couple of things. I mean, now, first of all, when the Marxists realize that they only have a few months left, and oh my gosh, if Biden actually were to lose the primary, you think it's crazy now? Wait for the 9 months between like March and December of what they're going to roll out. Okay, so there's that. But there's 17 states with open primaries, Texas being one of them. Right now, my plan is to vote for Robert Kennedy, I just want to derail Biden as quickly as possible. I will worry about November when November comes, okay? But the other thing is, I'm not convinced that Democrats are willing to cheat as hard for Kennedy as they would for Biden, because he's not that empty shell that Marxists can pour all of their wet dream policies that they've been waiting to implement in this country forever. He's not that guy. So anyhow, my first goal is to get rid of Biden, and I think that you do that through an open primary. So if you're in an open primary state, and is it the worst thing? Right now, is it the worst thing if Kennedy ends up being president? I don't think so, because I think this guy, at least, I know. I see you none. Yeah.
He's a totalitarian. No, okay. He is. Listen,
I don't know if
you read down the list.
Oh, trust me. Trust me. I know. I'm not saying that I'm voting for him in the general. I'm just saying that, look, if he gets through the primary as a Democrat nominee, then the part of me is going to exhale a little bit, okay? But no, I'm with you. He's so far left on so many things. That,
I mean, Keith, at best, we could make our own, like, they have the Putin pictures of him, like, wrestling bears. If you saw did you see the RFK workout video? We could definitely have him wrestling some bears on the White House lawn. Like, that would actually be like, you know what? Whatever. Put me in jail for not believing in catastrophic climate change, but at least go wrestle a bear. Like, at least go wrestle. Like,
and that's where I am on him. He's out. Okay. I think it's fair to say that he is outside of the mainstream on vaccines, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So
he's a classic Democrat on vaccines, because Democrats were against vaccines for the longest time.
Against big pharma, right? Against big war. And we could, I didn't even respond to what you said about Ukraine, but you and I are eye to eye on that. I'm waiting for the U.S. national interest in that. So when you can.
Well, we just tried our CIA coup with the Wagner Group. And
I know that's what that was.
A CIA coup.
In fact, I think that's what I tweeted. I think I said, I don't know what's going on there, but I guarantee you the CIA is involved. But hold on.
If we would have never known about the special forces from that one guy that leaked it, they would have probably tried to make this cleaner. We know about Western special forces. What are they?
That's good. Yeah, it's a good point. But on Kennedy, it's like he's outside of the mainstream on vaccines. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yet I am, according to him, Robert Kennedy, I'm outside of the mainstream on climate change. Mm-hmm. So I would appreciate you extending, because there's a time 20 years ago where he was calling people like me traitors. Granted, he was talking about big business execs and blah, blah, blah.
He's called Glenn a traitor. Same
mindset. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I want to know where he is now, 20 years after making such a... Mm-hmm. So you're saying that I deserve the death penalty because I don't believe in man-made climate change? Have you evolved on that? Because if you want grace on something where you're outside of the mainstream vaccines, then are you going to extend that to people like me who apparently I'm outside the mainstream on climate change? I want to know if he's evolved on that front. And yes, there are many issues with which Robert Kennedy Jr. and I would disagree with. But see, then I stop for a second and I go, hang on a second. There have been times in history where leaders have had to step up in unusual circumstances. People that you wouldn't normally, like, for example, Great Britain wanted nothing to do with Winston Churchill. Right. And then World War II happens. They're like, oh, shit, what's that guy? What was he saying about this stuff? And so all of a sudden, they need him for that time. Well, we're in an era of tyranny, which, yes, there are many red flags on the tyrannical front with Robert Kennedy. I'm not naive. I know this. But my point is, we are in a strange COVID era now, this post-COVID era, where you know that the people that are in charge of this country right now are in lockstep with people around the world like the WEF and the WHO, and we are currently one of their chess pieces. Okay, you got in Canada, there's so many countries, right? You could do this, but it's amazing what's happening in Europe, by the way, how the right is now rising up and saying,
Italy, Poland.
Fuck this. And but who can argue with 81 million people over here, right? Am I right? So what I'm saying is, I don't think that Robert Kennedy is going to be in lockstep with the big threat right now, which is this new world order, this WEF-led Klaus Schwab situation, where that's our government now.
Yeah,
that's our government.
Can you take Greta Thunberg being the climate czar, though?
I can get what you're saying, though, because it's just like RFK, he at least has a stubbornness about him.
Yeah.
That there's a better chance of him saying, I'm not going to go along with this, than just the corpse in the White House that doesn't even have a choice in the matter. He doesn't know where he is.
I just refuse to give any leftist the benefit of the doubt. And I still think RFK the leftist. I don't give him the benefit of the doubt anymore, because we've been, fool us once. Like, everyone falls in love with Tulsi Gabbard. I'm not in love with Tulsi. Tulsi to me is still a leftist. Yeah, we can agree on some things without me trusting you. Like, so it's like, I do agree with RFK on some things. I definitely don't want to trust him. If he won the presidency, I feel like we'd be getting a reset similar to a blend between like a Clinton, Barack Obama, because he still is a Marxist on some things. Like, he still has that leftist totalitarian tendency, but we agree on some things. But I don't know if he'll extend that grace. I don't trust anyone on that side to extend that grace.
Fair.
I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you. I was having a conversation with someone earlier today, and I actually said, it's ironic that you brought up Bill Clinton. I said, it feels like with RFK, you might get Bill Clinton on some issues. Yeah. But you might get Ron Paul on others.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
And as I said,
it's actually a pretty good blend right there.
And I said, that's where I'm stuck. It's like, dude understands Bitcoin. I don't know how many candidates right now truly understand how important that's going to be. I'm looking out 4-8 years, and I'm thinking, okay, sure as hell not going back to any kind of lockdown situation. I need somebody that understands the integrity of our bodies and are making our own choices with this vaccine bullshit. Yeah. And so I appreciate him on that front, and Bitcoin and so on. But let me tell you how low my bar is now for a presidential candidate. It's true, and I say this, and it sounds like a joke, but it's 100% true. My standard is, do I think this candidate loves America? Because good and well that Joe Biden and anybody associated with him hate this country. And I think that Robert Kennedy actually does love America. Me and him may disagree on a buttload of things, but I think that Donald Trump obviously loves America. Ron DeSantis loves America. I think Vivek Ramaswamy loves America. But anyway, isn't that pathetic, though, that's where we're at in this country, where it's like, okay, can we just have somebody, left or right, just tell me they love this country? Because Obama and Biden sure as hell haven't.
But that makes you a bigot if you love America, and you're a fascist if you love America. So speaking of fascism, let's talk about the fascist right.
Okay.
Trump, DeSantis are real serious candidates. No one cares about Nikki Haley. No one cares about, no one cares about Mike Pence. Chris Christie's just going to fill up the stage. Him and Jeffy can kind of have a stomach off. Like, we're gonna figure out, like, there's
just don't pot shots at Jeffy.
Oh, why not? Listen, I figure if I make fun of him enough, he'll come on the show just to yell.
Oh yeah, that's a good play.
If I just keep on pissing him off enough and make fun of him, he'll be like, oh, why doesn't that? Let me just go on and talk. Like,
hold on a second. Have you reached out to him?
No, not yet. No.
Okay, well, when you do, offer food, and
I will have it delivered.
you-
I will call in a delivery and I will make sure he's eating it. That will be like our first live stream. We'll
That'd be hilarious.
eating while we talk. And I will make sure I get your soundbar. Let me eat. And I will every time he takes a bite. It'll be derailed at the whole show. But between Trump and DeSantis, I'm going to put you on the spot here. It might not be popular. Where are you leaning right now? If a gun to your head, vote right now. You had to pull the trigger for a primary. I'm putting Keith on the spot. He might hate me for this.
But I don't have to decide till March, Super Tuesday.
Today
Don't
is
forget.
Super Tuesday, pretend.
Okay, yeah. Just don't forget that if I have to vote, and this is not a cop-out, I'll answer your question. But don't forget, I will vote for Robert Kennedy in the primary just to dismantle the Biden machine if I can.
I love it.
But if I were voting in the Republican primary right now, gee, I tell you though, that Suarez guy. No,
he's handsome.
Let me say this. I referenced on Pat's show recently a conversation from October of 2020. I remember listening to, I think it was 2 hours. Trump called in to talk to Rush Limbaugh. Rush blew off commercials.
Yep.
And
I remember listening to that too.
And I really felt listening to Donald Trump that he was close to really exposing, and that's why they hate him, and that's why they impeached him. He was so close to actually exposing our government for what it is, which is a grotesque Marxist shell of deep state operatives who have controlled this country since before, and definitely since. I agree with Ron Paul that the government fell in November 22nd, 1963. With the assassination of John F. Kennedy. My gosh, by the way, I've got to take the opportunity to plug this book that I just read. I finally finished it. I misplaced it for a while. And then when I stumbled on it the other day, I was so excited. It's a book by Robert Morrow, and Robert Morrow worked for the CIA as a contractor. Ooh. And you're like, well, why the hell are you trusting a CIA operative's book? Well, anyhow, he unwittingly helped with the planning of that assassination, as he tells in the book. He ended up securing the rifles that were used, and he manipulated radios. You got to read this book, Robert Morrow, but I don't want to get off track there.
Wait, how did he talk to a lone gunman like that?
Yeah,
It was just one person.
Oh, that magic bullet. Am I right? So anyway, to answer your question, though, now that I've gotten off track and talked to you about how the deep state has definitely controlled this country since at least November of 63. And Trump exposing it. I think he was that close. I really do. But then DeSantis makes a good point. It's like, all right, well, I mean, you had 4 years. And let me tell you where the tiebreaker comes between the two for me. Right now, my tiebreaker goes to Ron DeSantis. And that is because I am still pissed off, and I will be pissed off for the rest of my life about this damn vaccine bullshit.
Fair. Yep.
And I understand that Donald Trump was put in a very difficult position, but Donald Trump has good instincts. And his instincts early on were to open the country up by Easter, which I think was mid-April or whatever, right?
Yep.
And if he had stuck with that, he could have course corrected, and we could have avoided the insanity that ended up taking the election from him through all the drop boxes and all that stuff. Sorry, go ahead. What?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Would he have been impeached and removed from office if he did that by the Congress that was very uniparty? So if you're thinking about instinct wise, could he have done it? Like, a lot of people criticize him for not firing Tony Fauci. And I think, while his answers are kind of here and there, one of the most prevalent ones that's right is, could he have done it? He just got impeached for firing James Comey. Everyone knew he should have fired James Comey. The left knew he should have fired James Comey. They still impeached him. You're going to fire Tony Fauci. They're going to impeach you again.
Yeah.
So I think he's sitting there already thinking maybe it's wrong, thinking of reelection and trying to mitigate this as well as he could to try and get reelected So, I'm not giving him a pass. I think he made mistakes. And I think anyone would have made mistakes there, right? Because it was that who knew to take the COVID war game by Bill Gates seriously, right? Who knew that they were actually going to do it? And, maybe we should now know to pay attention to whatever the UN, the Bill and Melinda Gates are doing. But I kind of see that as we hindsight Donald Trump and what he did there. I mean, it's fair to criticize, but at the same time, everyone was lockstep until about 3 weeks later, and then all of a sudden the criticism started to come in.
Well, I'm not to the point of what I haven't forgiven him for, really. Donald Trump is a fighter, and I think that if he had fired Fauci, he would have fought that battle. He would have crossed that bridge when he got there. I don't know that he thought, hey, if I fire Fauci, they're going to impeach me and then I'm not going to be president. I don't think that's what it was. I think it was just an unprecedented situation. And as is typical with Donald Trump, the entire machine, and his party included, were lined up against him. And that's going to happen regardless, because he did exactly what they wanted, and they still impeached him twice. Yeah. So I mean, they're going to find something. They're going to do something to get that man out of office, which makes me want to put him back in because I know how much they detest him. Yes. And so, right? So, I mean, trust me. But he ended up handing his presidency over to people like Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci and these health specialists that knew so much, and that's not like him. See, that's not like Donald Trump in that he does what's unpopular, and he didn't, and that's what ended up costing him, and that's what ended up opening the door for them to take this election from him through the various measures that they put in place in states. And anyway,
it was the most fair election of all time, Keith.
Right. So, but what I'm still pissed about with him, it's not that he handed over his presidency. That's not why I would vote against him right now, gun to my head. It's the fact that, and this is his Achilles, the man is incapable of admitting when he gets something wrong. And I don't operate in that space. I cannot put myself in that mindset as a human being. And it's like, this was the worst thing. We talked about the climate hoax, right? And we can talk about the redistribution of wealth, and we can talk about kids being brainwashed to believe this climate cult insanity. I mean, they've been talking about this. I was thinking this the other day. It's like, I got out of high school in 1994, just before the climate change insanity really took root in schools. And so the kids because I remember in the late 90s, I think it was the summer of 98, if I recall, it was really hot. And I remember that talking point, that whole template of, man, it sure is hot. It's probably global warming. And then it just, you might want to look it up, David, if you have a chance here. I think 98 was a really hot summer, and that's when that shit really took off. And the kids that were getting they were getting that stuff just pounded into their brains. Those people are in their 40s now, and they're decision makers of the world. They're the ones coming up with this ESG and all this insanity and climate and let's go green and all that stuff. So I mean, those kids are now of age, and they're decision makers and they're leaders. But as serious as, and obviously I have ADD, but as serious as the climate change hoax is, and for redistributing wealth and indoctrinating this generation, the COVID vaccine is so much worse. It is so much worse. The lives that have been negatively affected, the injuries that people have suffered, the lives that have been lost, families that have been destroyed, that people had to make this decision. Do I want to continue to be able to provide for my family, put food on the table, pay my mortgage on time, pay the bills when they're due? Or could I stand on principle? Because not everybody had a great CEO like me at the Blaze. that said, "Oh hell no, we're not doing this
We'll
stupid
take every
vaccine
fine
thing."
you throw at us. We're not forcing our people to do anything. And I remember
Right?
Glenn saying that on there, like, we are standing against this. You want to fine us $5,000 a week? So be it. We'll go out of business before we force anyone to do that.
Right.
So, yeah.
But most people in this country work for lemmings.
Yeah.
And they work for people that see, oh no, look, I swear I can't tell you how many times, and people that I respected, and I'm not going to get into an out 'em here on the air here, but so many people in my world who would lean on this crutch of, well, CDC guidelines say, fuck CDC guidelines, man. Make a decision for yourself. There's not a decision that I make in my life where I've ever said, well, a government agency said, and then I leaned on that as my justification to go against my principles. What the hell is that? And this happened time and time again. And so many people, like I said, they had to make this choice on whether or not they were going to provide for their families and roll up their sleeve. I mean, it's insanity. It's insanity, and it's wrong. And for him, Donald Trump, to, after all that's happened in the last 3 years, after what he's still out there bragging about Operation Warp Speed, for him to not even for a second say, you know what, that actually, I regret that. I regret forcing that thing through. We should have taken time and gotten more data. No, he can't do that. And so if he can't do that, then that's a flaw in a leader. I didn't say I wouldn't vote for him. I'm just telling you, gun to my head right now, that's the tiebreaker between him and DeSantis.
And I can't knock you for that. I can't knock you for all that. And it's funny, though, because I think we're getting closer to that, Keith, because I think in his last statement when he was talking to Brett Baer, he did defend it, but he's starting to say, he's not saying it is such a great vaccine. What he said is, some people don't like it. Some people really love it. And he did, and he wasn't bragging about the effectiveness of the vaccine anymore. He was saying he did a great job getting warp speed together.
Yeah. But in that same,
we're inching closer to him saying, which is all he needs to say is, listen,
I screwed up.
warp speed, by all means, the actual process was a success. The vaccine did not have the effect that we predicted it was going to have.
No, that'd be good.
Were ruined. And that would be it. And that's all he needs to say. Lives were ruined. As president, I know not to make that mistake again next time.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. In that same breath, did he not say, somebody said I saved 1 billion people with, wasn't that the same sit down?
You got it. I guess the thing with Trump is, when you get a minuscule of an apology, you need to disregard everything else said, because he'll say it and then try to cover his ass any which way. And you got to take Trump with Trump. My biggest thing with DeSantis, and I think DeSantis might be a good president, I don't know jack shit about his foreign policy. And if the thing about Trump is that's your strongest point, I think, was his foreign policy. He was really good for him with the Abraham Accords, crossing, into North Korea, having a relationship with Putin where he could basically say, you go into Ukraine, I'm bombing you. And Putin believes him. So Ron DeSantis scares me, because the thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, he was a founding member of the Freedom Caucus. To me, cool, you were in Washington. That terrifies me. That terrifies me that you were already in Washington. So DeSantis, I want to hear his foreign policy, which is why I love primary season, because I could flip on Trump. I have no problem doing it. If DeSantis ends up having a really good, when he said about the border, if you try to break through my wall, you're going to die. I was like, yes, he delivered it like Kermit the Frog. He needs to have some more charisma, but his charisma is terrible. I don't know if I could listen to a guy who's going, we're going to go in there and we're going to get them really, really hard, and it's going to hurt them really bad. I'm like, he needs a coaching there. Keith, you need to go coach him on how to be, a little more
animated.
Expressive.
No.
That's my trepidation with DeSantis.
I do want to break this real quick. Just to 1998 is when the El Nino weather happened. So yes,
good memory.
Highest on record. And then I also saw a lot of cope about how it's been cooling trend from then on. Now, a lot of cope. Did global warming stop? Well, no, actually, if you start from there, no, it's a lot of cope on here. But yes, that was the highest recorded year in temperature. And also, I do want to say, because you brought up about some people in your space, Keith, that were saying CDC, going by the CDC guidelines, and it's just, it rattles my brain that if you're going to say like you're a conservative, if you're going to say that you're a libertarian, if you're going to put these labels on yourself, which are supposed to be smaller government labels, and then say I'm going to go with this government agency's recommendation, it makes no sense. You're obviously going against something that you purport to be for. So that just blows my mind.
No, and back to your point, Alex, about Donald Trump and foreign policy. I would love to live in a world where the presidency of the United States had such limited effect on our lives. But that's not the case, unfortunately. And it's never been more obvious than the difference in foreign policy between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It's amazing how our nation, the respect from the world, I don't care if they feared us for 4 years during Trump. Good. I'd rather they fear us than what we have now, which is just an absolute embarrassment in the Oval Office. Remember, Trump was supposed to be the one that isolated our allies.
World War III is guaranteed.
Right. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Let me just see if I can rattle this off from memory.
The guy who hated war was supposed to start World War III.
Right.
That's the funny fact too.
Right. But notice that he had China by the short and curlies on trade. Mm-hmm. He made inroads with North Korea, like you said. They weren't lobbing missiles over Japan when he was after he established that relationship. Putin wasn't going into Ukraine, obviously, and it goes on and on. He took out the Iranian general.
He squashed what's a
religious scholar.
What was ISIS? He squashed ISIS. Who thought that was going to be a thing? ISIS was at its peak when he got in.
Yeah,
and something he never gets credit for was Ireland was telling Israel, "Oh, you know what? Since you guys are like so anti-Palestinians, then we're just going to stop trading with you." And then something along the lines of where Trump, can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was almost like, "Oh, maybe we'll just stop trading with you." And then Ireland was like, "Oh, sorry, just kidding. That was a joke." It was something like that. It was something like that.
That's one of the reasons to love Trump, because he would do things no one else would do. Like no other president will do that, but Trump will sit there in a press conference just be like, "Yeah, Ireland, you said you don't want to trade with our closest of allies, Israel. Well, guess what? You're not Britain. We won't trade with you either." And then on your next, like that will be something I need that again. I'm not gonna lie, I need that again.
He moved the embassy, obviously, there in Israel. But let's see if I can remember this from memory. I'm trying to think here, so just bear with me here. This might take a moment here. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden in his first year.
Don't do it to me.
Well, don't do it.
You're blackpilling right now.
No. I'm trying
in the teeth world.
I'm trying to remember here. I'm seriously. I'm trying to remember this.
Yeah, you're good.
Remember, he pissed off France.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wasn't that with it was with a deal with Australia? Remember that? Pissed off our oldest ally.
Yep. It was a steel deal, I think it was, or something like
France
that.
pulled their ambassador for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It wasn't under Trump. It was under Biden.
Yep.
And they said he was incompetent. I think it was something like that, like saying he was incompetent.
Right. Who is the first president to be, admonished by Britain's parliament? Was it Donald Trump? Oh, no, that was Joe Biden.
Yeah.
That was Joe Biden.
Hates England for no reason. No reason.
He can't say Rishi Sunak. He can't say Rishi Sunak's name.
Oh, gosh. He doesn't even know who he is, man. No, Biden doesn't even know who he is.
Yes.
He was surprised that there was a brown guy elected by conservatives in Britain. Like, he's the most racist dude we've ever had.
You saw the first time you saw the first time he landed in Britain, and he just walked right back, right.
I'm surprised he didn't hand them a bag.
He's like, "Oh, a little brown man here to carry my luggage." I mean, that's what he was thinking. You know it.
Ask him for pudding.
Anyhow, this dementia is, just think about what it's going to be like a year from now, and that's why him in the debates with RFK would be priceless. But anyway.
Yes.
But Joe Biden, man, I swear every press conference is worse than the one before. I mean, this Bidenomics thing was bad enough, but it just, every time the man talks about, because I think one of the things we were going to talk about tonight is, I don't know how long you want to go here, but
yeah, it all depends on you. You got to get to sleep. I don't want to go too much longer with you.
Well, I was thinking because you had said, hey, how much longer is the United States going to be a thing? You know?
Basically.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking how much Joe Biden just loves to, walk around with his F-15 hanging out, and he talks about, hey, you don't have any fighter jets, and you don't have any nuclear weapons, and what are you gonna? Well, first of all, joke's on you, Joe. The Second Amendment allows me to have nuclear weapons. It's my HOA that gets in the way of that. So anyhow,
I didn't know that was a line in your HOA. You are not allowed to hold on to a nuclear football.
It's a line in the Constitution, actually, right? It's right in there, right in the Second Amendment, unless your HOA says you can't have it.
Well, I mean, according to Joe Biden, in the Second Amendment, there's a lot of clauses in the Second Amendment saying specific weapons we're not allowed to have, right?
My gosh, this guy. And you know what I'm really afraid of now, guys, is just last week in front of Congress, they were demonstrating those robot dogs.
My God.
That's what the federal government needs. An army of robot dogs armed marching down my neighborhood streets. Come on now.
Isn't it San Francisco or San Diego that was already experimenting with that, having those like drone cops identifying crime? That was a story, I think about a year ago, that they had prototypes and things like that. Like, we are very close to that dystopia. Like, we are very close to that dystopia of AGI, which I know Glenn and everything warns about that. He's terrified me. Thanks, Glenn. And just AGI and putting AGI in these freaking things and make them cops and having a bunch of RoboCops coming around and shooting conservatives.
Yeah, has anyone not seen
It's going to hunt us.
Yeah, has no one ever seen that?
RoboCop, Judge Dredd, any of these, iRobot. I can go on and on and on. Terminator is the one everyone always references, but like there's so many that you can go, and it's like we don't need this. We are the disease. They will tell us we are the disease. Like
that's how they will be programmed. Yes.
So quickly, I want to. So go ahead. You finish your.
I was just gonna say, like, it would be nice to be able to entertain the thought of just a handshake divorce, where you're just like, hey. Cool, we'll go our way, you'll go your way. But we know that's, first of all, not going to happen. But let's just say for a moment it does. There's good people in blue states. There's a lot of good people in blue states.
I'm in New York.
Right,
I don't know if I count as a good guy, but I'm here.
So what would you do? Let's just say, for the sake of drawing a border, the Mississippi River, you're conservative and free, you're red on the west side. Hey, if you're on the blue side, you're going to get more of the same. Would you leave?
Yeah.
Okay, so you would leave. Now, hang on.
If if that was the choice, yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know if you're a homeowner. Are you a homeowner? Yes, I'm a homeowner. I know David's about to be a homeowner, right?
Yes. So yeah, David just closed yesterday.
So then what happens? That's a little messy, right? I've got a house to sell. What am I going to do? Are you going to sell it and leave? I've got a solution. I just want to see what your thoughts are on that, because that's awkward when you come over here and now you don't have property.
Yep.
I got to figure it out for you. Ready?
I'm here.
Have you ever looked at a map of the United States and seen all of the federal land out west?
Yes, I have.
When that federal frickin' government goes away,
Manifest Destiny has returned.
You guys are gonna own some of the most beautiful property in New America. Congratulations.
I would love that. And and it would be difficult. And I always hear, like I said, I listen to Tim Cass and stuff like that too, with Tim Pool. And he always gives the example, because people are always like, I can't move out of my blue state. I can't move out. I got things here. And he always says, what if your house caught on fire? Mm-hmm. Would you get out? Would you leave your house? And if your house caught on fire, everything burned down, would you go try to find a new home if you can't rebuild here? Yes, you would. You would take your family and you would leave. Pretend right now in this political situation, living in a blue state that's bearing down on you, your house is on fire, your family's about to get burnt to death. What are you going to do? So it's kind of like a good example there of, would I get out? Now, I want to paint this picture for you and tell me if I'm wrong here.
Okay.
When it comes to a national divorce, regardless of what happens, it won't be a handshake. There will definitely be some sort of fighting,
robot dogs.
And, one thing I always warn about is the left does have a ton of technology. They have control Silicon Valley. So they would certainly, I feel like they would have an advantage because they have a lot of the tech billionaires and shit like that. But say it actually happens, we split, it ends up there's a ceasefire, right? The war ends, we actually split. Tell me that the people on the right aren't the big morons that believe in freedom, that believe in choice, that would take all the people that went to the blue side initially and then start regretting it. and then they want to migrate to red America again. Tell me our dumbasses would actually say no. And I will tell anyone that tells me that they are wrong, because I have grown up a conservative. My dad was, and I see the morons that are on our side. And we actually believe in freedom. We actually believe in liberty. We actually believe in welcoming people with skills. And if these skilled people from Blue America, from East America, because they were definitely from Eastern Germany, if they came over after starving under Marxist policies, if they made it from being shot, you're telling me the conservatives would say no? Absolutely not. We would take them, they would vote like assholes here, and they would eventually turn us purple. We would get America all over again.
But I think West America would have a wall. So
we would help them over the wall.
Yeah.
We would humanitarianly help them over the wall, because that's the type of people we are.
But see, it's going to take some time to completely degenerate West America. And by then, you and me will be dead. So that's going to be a while.
To deal with it.
Unless you become president somehow, because I feel like you would arm guard that wall and you would be like, nope, nope, you chose, idiots.
I would actually, if I were president of New America, West America, I would make sure that the West America White House had a bay window facing east with little sniper holes that I could personally man.
Like Wanted, you would bend some bullets wherever you need to go.
So
can we make this South United States and North United States? I know you're in Texas. I know you're burning to death, but I live in the Northeast. I would rather give up New York and have like Southern California and Florida and everything. I want that.
Yeah, trust me. I've tried to. I'm sure there's an old Twitter post where I tried to draw the map to make everybody happy. It's awkward. I'll say that. Poor New Hampshire, man. Sorry, you're landlocked.
You're like the strong ones in the Northeast too, and we're
yeah. But I was actually talking with my son about this, about what would it look like, if America separated. Anyway, he made a great point, which for those of us that are into small government, might want us to spend that just for a moment and think this through. He made the point that it's not going to be individuals fighting the U.S. government. It's going to be governments like states against other states or against the federal government. It's going to be more organized than just, you ain't taking over my neighborhood. It's going to be, it's going to be more organized than that. And sadly, I think so. First of all, I think he's right about that. But secondly, I think that's where we need a little bit of organization. If this
and
is
we have none.
I know.
Where would the cops and military go? Because from what I saw from COVID, it ain't going in our favor.
Yeah,
it's not going to go. They were quick. Cops are supposed to be support the blue line. There's, most of the guys are conservative, but the moment their livelihoods got threatened, get off that park without a mask. I'm going to arrest that soccer mom and slam her to the ground.
And in red states too.
And in red states, in red states. And then our military has gone gay. They celebrate pride.
I know.
And, and it's like, and the leaders that be, these people are trained to listen. What are they going to do? Are they really going to go again? I don't have any faith from what I've seen in men being men in this current organization. So I feel like it would be a true uphill battle for the right to survive. I feel like the left wants this.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that really stuck out in my mind, that for DeSantis, when he said day one, he would root this stuff out of the military. Well, I like that. I mean, that speaks to me. But, it's the saddest thing is that we actually think we have a say in our elections anymore. I mean, right?
That's the last thing I want to get to you. Can we start having original ideas for elections on the right? Can we stop just going, the left was good at that, let's do it better? Because now, what is the thing? Ballot harvesting. By the time we get good at ballot harvesting, the left is going to think of something else, and they're going to kick our ass there. So instead of just going, let's just do what they did, but do it better, which is all the right can do, apparently. Let's do something original. What, like Scott Presler? Scott Presler scares the shit out of the left because he is everywhere registering voters.
Yeah.
And Ronna McDaniel, I hate that woman. I don't know her, but I hate her. Because why is she not hiring 50 more of these people, 49 more of these people, and putting them in every single state?
I know.
And that should be a RNC initiative. And I'm a big proponent of getting conservatives in inner cities. Stop giving up the inner cities. Walk door to door. It will take 10 years. But if you keep on going to the same exact person every single election cycle, and the same person shows up and knocks on their door and goes, remember me? You told me to go away. How's your life been the last 2 years? You keep doing that, eventually the cities will start to turn. But we're too scared to do that. So those are two things. We're this podcast here. We have a little bit of a reach. You guys have much more of a reach. I would love to hear that unpack, right? I would love to hear you guys rallying that call of conservatives, stop being morons and just doing everything the left does, and getting in inner cities and trying.
No, I'm with you 100%. And I've actually, I lived in the inner city in Houston and tried to get Sheila Jackson Lee out. And the guy I supported, and I actually went door to door and went to, I don't know, it was the University of Houston. There was an event there. I tried. We lost like 70-30.
Yeah,
to her. It wasn't. But
it's not going to happen instantly.
But you're right, though. It's not going to happen overnight.
Consistency.
But here's the thing: you go door to door. Not many people had our experience when we lived in Houston. We were the only white people for about 5 miles. Not a lot of people have that situation. So what do you say if someone answers the door and says, "Oh, did you just visit me from the suburbs? Why do you live out there? Why are you coming down into my neighborhood to tell me how to?" I'm not saying that your plan isn't wise, and you got to make inroads.
Well, we got to think of something because we got to let them know and
got to have an answer for stuff that, right?
Because we have seen what the policies of the city have done, and we want to take our families out of what you're living in, and think our candidate will give you that ability to do that.
Yeah, maybe
I have the radical idea of ending. I have the radical idea of ending the project system, which I think would never be popular, but making it I would love to support. I'm small government. I would gladly support a government program which makes projects temporary living, and you can only live there if you join a government jobs program where we train you. We will, every paycheck you get, the government matches towards a mortgage, and you have X amount of time to move out and get a house. And if you don't do that, you get kicked out of the project.
Why aren't you president?
Because I'm an asshole, and people wouldn't listen to me. But that's another thing. That is a government program that will make our society benefit and end the freaking project system and take the power away from the left to keep these people down and voting for them.
The thing that really sucks about this particular primary season, as far as taking our government back and getting a Republican in office, what really sucks is that I think a large part of the left going after Trump right now is so that he has to drain his coffers just for legal expenses. Yeah. And he's having to deal with those distractions instead of focusing on a campaign season. And in addition to having to fight off the left through legal avenues, he's also having to fight off in a primary, challenger like DeSantis and others. And it just, I wish that the right were more organized. I do like that we are independent thinkers, but sometimes that comes back and bites us in a season like this when we must defeat the Democrat president right now. But then, and then despite all of this, the external attack Trump's having to deal with from the left, the internal battles between him and his party, you look at these, you talked about ballot harvesting and how once we get that figured out, they're going to go on to something else. I think the key is these states. And would it be the end of the world if DeSantis had to stay? Oh, no, you've got to stay governor of Florida. I mean,
it's actually ideal. It's actually ideal.
Right.
If he stays, Kemp stays, Abbott stays, some of the groups stay.
So, we could talk about Abbott. No,
he's been better than a lot of them.
Right. Oh, no, you're right. You're right.
Complain, but he's still a strong one. In
right. No, that's fair. But looking back to the 2000 election, that debacle, that fiasco. See, what's happened? What seems to be more the rule now with chaos in states, and it's by design, as you well know.
Yep.
That used to be the exception. you could go to bed at night knowing who the president of the United States was going to be.
Yup.
And those were paper ballots.
Yep.
Those were. It's amazing how
We'll get
an
those days
office
back.
system you can get right to the truth quickly. It takes a while to manufacture stuff, but when Florida was embarrassed on an international stage in 2000, and then they got their shit together and said, no more, we're not going to be, because that's shortly thereafter. That's about the time where, and it was about maybe 8 or 10 years later, that's where George Soros said, oh shit, I see how it works in America.
Yep.
It's the Secretary of State. That's what I got to do. I got to get the Secretary of States in all of these places that are battlegrounds, and we can manipulate the outcomes. But see, Florida put their system on lockdown 24 years ago. And so now that's how someone like a Ron DeSantis gets elected in Florida. It stuns the world.
Yep.
It's like, oh, crap. That's because their election system isn't susceptible to fraud, like a place like an Arizona that hasn't been challenged like that, or a Michigan, or a Wisconsin.
As legit as you're going to get around.
Right, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Georgia, all of these states that didn't see this stuff coming got blindsided by Soros appointees and dirty, easily manipulated elections. Florida was ahead of the curve because of the ridiculousness of 2000. Other states didn't have that wake-up call. And so the states are the key. Yeah. But the states are also the key to have people like a Ron DeSantis in office. So like you said, is it the end of the world to have a President Trump and a Governor DeSantis again? Not at all. So I just hope more states can figure out how to get good leaders that have this kind of foresight, and legislatures that can put their elections on lockdown. Otherwise, if we don't get the states figured out, then we're just going to continue to have a repeat of 2020. It's going to happen again in 24 and 28, and before you know it, it's going to be a hot war.
That's an absolute salient point. And, before we go, last thing I want to kind of, Dave, go ahead.
I have one thing to say, and then I do have a final question.
Yeah.
Unless you actually have something. But
no.
I do have one thing to say, because, the voting actually matters very much. But I also think the American right really has to take control of the culture in some kind of way in creating. And I do actually recommend, I don't know how much you listen outside of the country at all, but I do recommend the Lotus Eaters, because they're English. They talk about England, but they talk about the culture of England and why, it might not be this, facts thing, but it's a feeling to be a part of the English culture. And it should be a feeling to be a part of American culture. Yeah. You ask someone that's a normie on the street every day, and you ask them what is American culture, most of them aren't going to have any idea what to say about that. They're not going to have anything to say. So there is something to be said about making a well-polished American culture and bringing back traditions that the right seems to have just not exactly abandoned, but they're not really pushing it, and they're not trying to incentivize people to enjoy American culture.
Yeah.
No. I recommend Lotus Eaters, because they talk about English culture.
Yeah,
but
Paul Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad.
I wrote that down, the Lotus Eaters. But you know what? Yeah. I mean, to your point, David, we've been conditioned to hate our culture.
Yes.
To hate our history, and to be ashamed of it. Yeah. And that is so sad. And it starts in the home, and you got to teach your kids what about this country is to be commended and respected, and teach them to spread that message.
Yeah. And then the one final question, I mean, it's not exactly a cheery question sometimes, but my one final question, complete non sequitur, Atlanta Falcons gut feeling for this season. How are you feeling going into it?
10-7 playoffs. Ooh. Yeah. I have a lot more faith in Desmond Ridder than most people seem to. Okay. See, because the thing is, he started the last 4 games of the year, and his QB rating went up all 4 weeks like a staircase. So I actually have a lot of hope in him. And Bijan Robinson, of course, is apparently the second coming of the greatest running back of all time.
He's a monster. So
yeah. And look, I mean, Drake London's
good.
Kyle Pitts really shined at points last season. They've got the weapons, they've got what it takes, but they're the Falcons at the end of the day. So
I'll say this: the South is kind of open,
wide open.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I know we opened this conversation with Falcons talk. We thought we were done. You brought it back. Can I just say? Can I just say? In October of last year, I don't know if you guys recall the way the Falcons Buccaneers in Tampa game ended.
Yes, the roughing the passer that got him the field goal to win the game. Yes, I remember that.
Right, check my tweets. I said at the time, this will cost the Falcons the playoffs. And what happened?
It did.
If they win that game, which they still had to score, but they would have gotten the ball back with plenty of time.
Yep.
If they win that game, they win the NFC South. And the way it ended up, Tampa Bay, by getting that win, they were the first place team in the NFC South. Brady gets to go to the playoffs, and of course they lose to the Cowboys. And anyway, the end. I'm just saying that was our division.
And
that was our chance last year.
Call too.
And it got taken from us.
I remember that.
It was a terrible call.
Calls in NFL history.
Yes.
And so now the South is wide open, like you said. And so if things go according to plan, I think the Falcons win the division, but what do I know?
Hey, it's a good possibility.
I will say this as a Jets fan, I've seen Sam Darnold have a great last 4 games. I've seen Eugene Smith have a great last 4 games, get all pumped up, and then all of a sudden they come in and it looks like they've never played football before. So I'm hoping for your sake, and obviously I'll be listening, especially to more on trivia throughout the year.
You've got a tough division, man.
Yeah, we're gonna win because the Madden curse is real, and Josh Allen is playing 6 games, and the Jets will take the division handily.
Can I just say that, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, the Patriots should finish in last place.
Oh, yeah, they should, but they won't. They'll figure out a way not to.
They will figure out a way not to.
They might win the division. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots come back and win.
I would go in a hole. I would be in a hole if the Patriots win the division.
Seriously, no kidding. Can I just say before we go, I just want to mention that coming up on Monday, July 3rd, on my YouTube page, I don't do a lot there as much as I used to, but on Monday, July 3rd, I'm going to have a special. It's called, and by the way, it's youtube.com/atthemicwithkeith, youtube.com/atthemicwithkeith. Going to be a COVID-19 era of stupidity revisited. I'm just going to go through some of the things that we tolerated as a society are so dreadful. And then on Tuesday, July 4th, you can celebrate the birth of the nation, absolutely. But for that, I'm going to be celebrating the underrated life of Calvin Coolidge because that's his birthday as well.
That's awesome. Do it.
Go through the life and times of one Calvin Coolidge. youtube.com/atthemicwithkeith. Please subscribe.
Yeah, certainly go subscribe to that. And, last thing I want to leave you with, jumping back into politics. I want you to be on my side here. And instead of blaming Trump for midterms, the election and all that, can we blame the Never Trumpers and the Rhinos for splitting the party? It's all their fault.
I never did blame Trump.
Well, I see it all over Twitter and the nonsense and a lot of people bringing that up and everything. And it is a prevalent thing that Trump's candidates isn't there. Can we just all be real? It's the Never Trumpers and the Rhinos. They have cost us 3 straight elections. If they come in and do their thing and aren't jerk-offs, Republicans should win everything.
I think a case can be made for that perspective from you. I will say that Donald Trump is going to be blamed
for everything
by everyone.
Yes.
So the left is going to blame him for fill in the blank. We know that. But like you said, the Never Trumpers, the Rhinos, they're going to blame him they would have never given him credit had the Republican Party swept the midterms as expected. Yep. But they certainly will never give him credit because the one thing that, and like you said, the Uniparty, the one thing that the left and many on the right have in common is that they don't want Donald Trump anywhere near the presidency. They don't want to see him successful. And so if they see an opening, they see something that they can make a case for to blame him, that's what they're going to do. So, yeah, I've never personally bought onto that narrative that Donald Trump cost the Republican Party the midterms. Not at all. I think that I've never really sat back and thought about what was to blame for that. But and I hate to finish it like this, but we started off me telling you, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell you what I think. I think your big issue is election integrity.
Yeah.
And until we can get that on lockdown, I'm not going to trust another election in this country, unfortunately.
Understandably, understand, and I will blame Donald Trump for John Fetterman because he supported Dr. Oz over Kathy Barnett.
Oh, that one I
and
do.
That is where we will go. We can blame him for that.
Yes,
Kathy Barnett was going to win that, and he supported Dr. Oz. That is one thing. You don't forgive him for the vaccines. I forgive him less for freaking John Fetterman. Okay, that is his fault. Okay, I will take boosters if we never get Fetterman.
At least you can get funny memes from Fetterman. You can get funny memes from Fetterman.
That is a meme. But anyway, Keith,
they're not worth it. They're not worth it.
That's true. That's true.
Keith, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was awesome, dude.
Guys, absolutely.
Once again, he is Keith Malinak, executive producer of Pat Gray Unleashed, the show right before the Glenn Beck podcast daily. And it's on the Blaze TV radio networks. You can also find it Pluto TV, right? You guys are still over there on Pluto TV?
Channel 465.
465. And I recommend people go get Pluto. Pluto's actually a really dope service, a bunch of free channels. They play a lot of good movies. If you're a nerd like me and like anime and stuff, they have a ton of good stuff there too. So go there and watch that. Free plug for Pluto. They don't sponsor this show. But anyway, Keith, you were awesome. This is great. Dave, anything before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, this is a legendary moment for us. I know you said this before, but we are Pat heads. We've listened to many things on the Blaze, so it's incredible to have you on. It's awesome.
Thank you. Well, we will see you at 7 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning on Pluto TV 465.
Yes. And once again, go to youtube.com/atthemic. Go check out all the people Keith's interviewed. He does something similar, just much better than what we do because Keith's good at what he does. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Find us on socials. See you later, everybody.